Can you guys see this all right?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Nia Huyen, and I'm a biology fourth year peer mentor.
And hello, my name's Olivia. I am also a fourth year biology CNAS Scholars Peer Mentor.
Awesome. So, today our workshop topic is going to be understanding mental health and how to put yourself forward. Now, mental health is a super important topic because we, as not only college students, but also growing and developing adults, we really need to focus on putting our mental health in the forefront of things and making sure that we're able to really keep ourselves stable and healthy, both physically and mentally. Now, especially as students, mental health is super important because academic success and mental health really go hand in hand, where one supports the other. If you want to be mentally healthy, you're probably going to need academic success. And in order to succeed academically, you need to probably be in a good place mentally. So they really support each other, one feeds into the other. And we're really going to walk you through some of the ways to recognize and help support your mental health throughout this presentation.
All right, so for any of our Disney Pixar fans, sometimes or maybe many times you might find yourself feeling just like sadness from inside out. You got to take some time to rest and rejuvenate and maybe just lie there until tomorrow. It's good to really recognize that it is okay to definitely not be okay because there's a lot of things and like we experience in our lives. Each of us personally are going through so many things at the same time that it's just really hard to control, and it's just something that we have to endure. But we hope that this workshop can help provide some strategies and tips on how to deal with not being okay. So it's okay to feel like sadness, but we hope that we can one day feel like joy.
Awesome. So, speaking of joy, what brings you guys joy? So, since we have a smaller audience today, we can just go ahead and respond. Either feel free to unmute yourself or just feel free to message either me or Olivia directly via the Zoom chat. But just as we're waiting for some responses to come in, what brings me joy personally is really interacting with my family and friends. Like I felt that through my bonds and through hanging out with those that I love, I'm able to find a lot of joy and kind of rejuvenate myself and pick myself up. And so I'm interested in hearing some of what you guys have to say. Anyone feel free to share?
I got a direct message saying, what brings this person joy is to going out with friends. I also really agree with that one too. It's like with friends, family, loved ones, it's just having that like support system, they also bring me joy. I guess I can also contribute to this question. Cooking and baking desserts also really brings me joy. It's just like the act of doing it and as well as eating it brightens my day.
Awesome. And I got one more message that says, what brings this person joy is exercise. So, exercise is really awesome. It's a great chance to, again, link together your physical and mental well being. So, awesome. Really glad to hear it. And that's actually something we're going to touch on later in the presentation. But for now, thanks all, guys. Thanks you all for sharing. If you do have any additional contributions or if you do have any questions throughout the course of this presentation, feel free to either send it to us via the chat or at the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So with that being said,
Now we're going to go through a few statements or questions that we really want to try to demystify mental health.
all right. So true or false? Does seeking counseling services mean I have a mental illness or condition? What do you guys think?
False.
False? All right. You're exactly correct. So people seek counseling for a wide variety of reasons. It could be completely unrelated to any mental illnesses or conditions, or it could be related to those conditions. Well, speaking on the unrelated aspects, it could be anything regarding like it could be family, something personal that's occurring in your life, anxiety, perhaps over an upcoming date or deadline, or just something going on in your life, or even just stress about school. Like we're all students, we understand that there's super stressful deadlines, dates, there's projects to be done, homeworks to be completed, tests to study for, and just a million other things on top of balancing extracurriculars and everything else. So it's really important to just realize that these stresses do exist and they are something that will be affecting you. And if you do want to seek out counseling services, then there should be absolutely no stigma against it. And you should definitely feel free to do so you think that it'll benefit you at all. So next up, true or false? Are mental illnesses rare? All right, I got a message saying false again, and that's exactly right. So, mental illnesses can happen to anyone at any stage in their life. So, particularly for our age group, one study found that 20% of young adults, which is defined by ages 15 to 24, have experienced mental illness personally. And on top of that, the other 80% are often indirectly impacted, whether it's by interacting with someone who does have a mental illness, or perhaps by experiencing a mental illness themselves that may not be diagnosed, or just otherwise coming across it in their day-to-day interactions.
All right, so for our third statement, personality weakness or character flaws cause mental health problems. True or false? All right, I got a message saying false, and that is correct. Mental health has nothing to do with your personality or your character, whether it's a strength or a weakness. Um, just as like all of us, no matter what, excuse me, our personality or our character, we're all simply human, and we're biologically human. So we are all what's the word? We all can essentially be able to experience mental health problems, and so there's so many different types of contributing factors. So this includes physical illness or injury, a traumatic life experience, or even family history. So that can be passed down like inherently. And then for our last statement, true or false? Treatment varies by individual and can include medication, therapy, or both. All right, so I got another message saying true. Y'all are on fire with these correct answers. It is true. So depending on your circumstance and your needs, treatment can vary. So one person can only be treated with medication. Another person only needs to have therapy, like to speak with a therapist or psychologist. But sometimes you may need both. So a combination of the two can help um, elevate or sorry alleviate the issue, but it all just depends on the type of person. But in addition to the medication or therapy, a really good strong support system can also help. I previously mentioned that about with what brings us joy, having that support system, family, friends, loved ones, um, it's essentially to ensure that you are not alone in this fight. And so you have these people and others to really lift you up in your problem. And hopefully we can find a solution.
Awesome. And so throughout these past two slides, we've talked a little bit about the prevalence of not only mental health conditions and illnesses, but also just impacts and stressors upon those who even may or may not have these mental conditions or illnesses. So, with that being said, I'd like you guys to reflect on the following quote. So, this quote says, "Teens are physically safer than ever, yet they are more mentally vulnerable." Now, why might this be the case? It would seem that if they're physically safer and in a better position, then that would be inclining them to be more mentally secure as well. So, what are some things that you guys might think could contribute to this? All right, I got a message in the chat linking this picture on the phone. So, a picture of the phone rather. So that's exactly right. So, among other things, so there's a wide variety of stressors, and the list just expands way too much to cover in just a single slide or single presentation. But on the surface level of things, adults and even teenagers now are more mentally stimulated than perhaps they have been at any other point in history. Just because, for example, on with the access to phones now, you're connected to instantaneously to anyone else on the web, anyone else anywhere on the world. And for example, the statistic on the slide shows that the average teen sends about 420 texts per week, which boils down to 60 texts per day, or one text every 12 minutes for 12 hours straight, which is pretty engaged with your phone. And when you're on your phone, not only are you linked to other people around you, but you're also linked to, for example, the entire world, as I mentioned. Now, with the advent of the 24/7 news cycle and everything like that, with worldwide coverage, now people are hyper aware of like the world problems. So not only do they know of problems affecting them, their family, their local community, but now they're hyper cognizant of what's happening around the other side of the world. And perhaps they may feel a little bit powerless to kind of provide any real change or enact anything like that. So with that aspect, it could kind of cause them to be a bit more stressed and to realize that there's so much going on, so much potentially wrong in the world. And that can be really, really, really stressful for someone. Just it's a huge weight to have on your shoulders. And just kind of correlating with that is the idea, or a study conducted which showed that TV and social media are correlated on average with higher rates of depression and suicide, which again links very well with the kind of thesis of overstimulation and over or abnormally high access to all this information and potential stressors.
All right, so similarly to the statistics shown that how we can be mentally vulnerable as young adults, teens and young adults, that's very similar age demographic. So there was a survey taken just last year, actually, in June 2020, at the height of the pandemic. They asked, what is the impact that COVID-19 is having on student mental health? So the results that they received was that there is an overwhelming majority, so 85% to be exact, of college students, just like us, who are experiencing increased stress and or anxiety during COVID-19. You can see that there's a slight difference between the people who filled out the survey depending on how they identify, but you can still see it's a majority, it's over 50%. So I bet many of us are also feeling this prevalent stress and anxiety during the pandemic with remote learning and all other factors that we are experiencing in our own personal lives. So even though we particularly did not partake in this survey as the results is a good depiction of that you're not alone in this fight and in this stress and anxiety. And so it's also really great to remember that your feelings are valid and that we will get through this together.
Right. So, speaking of these causes of anxiety, so for the past year, we've all been experiencing the impacts of COVID, and the ongoing pandemic has led to a mass array of stressors. And so, just listing out what do you guys think are some of the top five causes of stress and anxiety right now? Just feel free to throw it out again, either via unmuting or just in the Zoom chat.
I got a chat. They said that overall college, but in particular finals and midterms and just exams in general.
Awesome, for sure. And I also got a message that said they're concerned about their family's health, both their own health and those of those around them. So definitely. Now, if we look through the top five causes of stress, according to a recent survey done, there's at the top 72% of approximately a teenager to adult aged participants felt uncertain about the future of their education. And as students yourselves, I'm sure that you felt the ramifications as you've been going through your past year of studies, not only in the exact moment now where there's been this shift to online coursework where lectures are no longer in person, lectures are just sometimes recorded asynchronously, and sometimes it's just you don't even get to interact with the professor and you just watch the video that's recorded. A lot of students are feeling uncertain about the future of their education, and this has fundamentally altered the landscape of education both now and presumably looking forward to the future. A lot of students are concerned about how they're falling behind in their coursework. Again, with now there being asynchronous video recorded lectures, there's not as much pressure perhaps to kind of stay on top of it, attend lectures and everything. And that compounds with online assignments that may be harder to keep track of, and online exams and everything like that. And with that, kind of there's this struggle with remote learning, where again, because of these difficulties that I've been describing, a lot of students have been stressed out and feeling that they aren't having as strong of an experience educationally as they would have in person. And these are concerns that are going to last not only this year, but also moving forward, where perhaps students might feel that their baseline might not be as strong because they built it upon an online virtual education where they didn't feel they were as stable. Additionally, on top of school, as students, most of us are involved in extracurriculars, and just even looking down the line, we're all looking to eventually get settled down in a career. And 50% of participants were worried about this because they felt that, well, in the moment, it's more difficult to get jobs because, again, because of regulations and safety guidelines, there's been a lot of closures, business closures. It's been harder to go out in person. And as such, it's harder to get like in-person jobs. And looking down the line, they're looking at future job and career prospects, and it doesn't look too encouraging for them. So again, this is a valid concern and something that we're going to address a little bit further in the presentation. And lastly, as that message has stated, 49% worried about their loved one's health. And again, the COVID-19 pandemic it's pretty scary. It's very scary, in fact. It's just the idea that anyone could be sick and potentially might not even know it kind of adds this other dimension and layer of potential fear and stress to every interaction you have with anybody. So that's definitely a valid concern and definitely something that um, we'll kind of address as we continue our presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Nia, for walking us through those types of stressors. But now that we have that knowledge and recognize what are those stressors and anxiety inducers that we have in our lives, now we can move forward and really start to instill a positive growth mindset in ourselves by turning our PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder into PTG or post-traumatic growth. So we've definitely all seen how prevalent COVID-19 has taken its effect on our lives. So, with those specific types of stressors as a result of the pandemic now, to move forward, the first step is to acknowledge the disappointment. So, acknowledge that as freshmen, you did not get a graduation or an in-person graduation last year in high school. Acknowledge it and then validate your feelings about it. But then the next step is to consider the positive alternatives. So now you're moving forward into the next chapter of your life. You're here now in your first year at UCR. Despite it not being what you had intended or hoped for, with in-person, that whole college experience, you are still getting this really beneficial educational opportunity. So I find that to be one really great positive alternative to think about. And then lastly is to focus outward. What are you going to gain from this time? What are you going to do with the extra time that you have on your hands? So we don't really have to dwell on all the negative parts of the pandemic and everything that comes with it. And so just like a short little example of how we can instill that positive growth mindset is with Isaac Newton, actually. I'm pretty sure many of you have recognized his name. So actually, during the Great Plague, or when bubonic plague was very prevalent, Isaac Newton was a college student at Cambridge. Obviously, the day, like back in the day, times are different, times have changed, but it's still the concept that we would want to convey to y'all hopefully can be applied to our own lives. So essentially with Isaac Newton, since his college was closed, he got sent home to study, work on math problems and whatnot. But the things that he was working on turned out to be what we now know as calculus. He also played around with prisms and light to now what we know as the theory of optics. And then lastly, I know this man is a genius, but it's crazy. Lastly, he witnessed an apple falling outside from his tree. And so that turned into the law of gravity and the laws in motion that we now learn in our science courses. So after those few years while being away from campus, he returned to college or to Cambridge as a professor. So of course, we're not going to return to UCR as a professor or as a grad student, all that stuff. We are still, in the beginning of our college career. But just to one really big takeaway from all of this is that with all the disadvantages, all the negatives, you want to continue exploring and learning and just finding those positive alternatives. So essentially, a question to ask yourself is, what will be the story you tell yourself in the future of how you mourned, developed, learned, and did whatever to come out of the situation as a better person?
Awesome. So Olivia brings up a really good point. There's going to be times when the situation you're in is just it feels like it's completely unsalvageable. It feels like everything's going wrong. You're having a terrible day. Uh, you missed the bus. It's raining. You didn't bring an umbrella, and it just everything's going wrong. But with that, we want to start bringing up this idea of finding the silver lining, so that we can start, as Olivia had discussed, turning your PTSD into PTG or post-traumatic growth. So with that, we have a brief activity for you guys today. So if you could take out a piece of paper and something to write with, like pen and paper. You can use a Word document if you don't have those ones handy, but oftentimes, like the act of physically writing something out can be pretty cathartic. So we'd recommend that. And just once you have that ready, just go ahead and list three things that make you feel like your life is enjoyable, enriching, or worthwhile at this very moment. And these things can be as broad in general as being healthy and just being in good health overall, or it can be as specific as, hey, I had a really great chocolate bar this morning and it was amazing. And the purpose of this first step is just to help you shift into like a little bit of a positive state of mind, just about your life in general. And as we continue this activity and as you continue your life moving forward. Now, if you're having a bit of trouble, just feel free to think back to the first question we discussed, like what brings you joy? Again, for me, I said hanging out with my family and friends brings me joy. So for me, in a recent thing, the three things that make my life feel enjoyable is that I was able to spend this past few weeks hanging out with my family, just because we were all living at home together and it was their spring breaks and my spring break recently. So I was able to get a lot closer with my family and just spend some quality time with them. And again, we'll feel free. Sorry about that. We'll feel free to share our ideas as we either move through these steps, or at the end. Again, you can either unmute yourself or share via the chat. But next up, once you have written those three things down, next, think about another time, of the most recent time, in fact, when something didn't go your way, or when you felt frustrated, irritated, or upset. And I mentioned earlier, like maybe it was raining recently. Like I know in Riverside it doesn't rain too often, but those rainy days do happen. And maybe you didn't have an umbrella. And just in a few sentences, just kind of describe the situation in writing. Now, just be like as specific and detailed as possible while also being succinct. You want to be able to kind of like fully digest and process the situation. So try to gather all the information and details you can on paper, just so rather than just bouncing around in your head, you have it down on paper and you're able to physically look at it and observe it. And once you have that, list three things that can help you see the bright side of the situation. So, for example, if you missed your bus this morning, then three possible ways to look on the bright side of the situation could be, well, hey, you missed the bus, but you got a little bit of good exercise when you were running to catch it. Or, I mean, you missed the bus, but you're fortunate enough to live in a city where there are buses at all and where there's perhaps another bus coming 10 minutes later. Like public transportation is a huge quality of life improvement and commodity. And it's just amazing to be somewhere where you can rely on it, being on time for you to miss in the first place, and in 10 minutes when there's going to be another one. And then maybe a third way is, yeah, you missed it and you're going to be doing nothing for 10 minutes, but hey, you can do nothing for 10 minutes. You know that in those 10 minutes, for once, like a lot of us, we're always on the move. We always have something to do. We're always looking forward to the next step, or so on and so forth. And those 10 minutes can just be a time to sit down, take a step back, relax, and just ground yourself in the moment. Because for those next 10 minutes, you're not going to be driving in a car and like hitting traffic. You're not going to be on the bus. You're just going to be at your bus stop waiting. And it could just be 10 minutes to just sit back, unwind, just take in the environment, or just like this very activity. Just think about some things that you can be thankful for and things that you can be positive for. And it's just a really great opportunity and a really great way to kind of change your outlook on a negative event and enjoy less stress. So with that being said, I hope you guys found this activity a little bit helpful. Did anyone feel like sharing any of their aspects of this activity, whether it's the three worthwhile things, the recent time that didn't go your way, or perhaps some of the positive ways that you could change your outlook on them? If not, that's totally fine. We'll just move forward, and then at the end, we can circle back to that during our open session if you'd like. I'm not seeing any messages in the moment, so we're just going to go ahead and continue. But again, just feel free to either message me or Olivia, or hold it on until the end of the session. Oh, and there's a meme.
All right, so now that everything that we have shared, hopefully you've taken away something. It's not the end, but we would love to share with you more resources, more specifically that you can find on campus at UCR to help with your mental health journey.
All right, so first up, we have the Campus Advocacy Resources and Education Office, or the CARE office. And What this office provides is an intervention and preventional approach to ending sexual violence at UCR and um, for UCR students and around the area. So, with this interventional and preventional approach, there's support and resources available both before any instances of sexual violence and in the case that such incidents do occur. So, in terms of preventing it, there's, for example, safety resources and information that are provided at these like safety planning workshops and safety planning informational sessions, and they even provide you with some resources. There's also accompaniment in case there is these again these instances that do occur of sexual violence. They understand that it's a very traumatic time and it may be difficult to think straight and follow the set instructions. So they're there to help kind of walk you through it and guide you to make sure that you um, kind of follow through everything accordingly and to best suit you. There's also crisis interventions, both for survivors as well as those affiliated, including like friends, housemates, and coworkers, because they do understand that trauma is like these traumatic events are very impactful not only on the victims themselves but also on those that are close with them. And similarly, there's healing support and case management. So they aim to provide all the a very supportive environment where your growth and recovery is facilitated and just brought to the forefront. Additionally, in case there's once again, if there is sexual violence that occurs and you or someone you know is a victim and it affects you, they also offer accommodations. Both, well, again, they offer academic, housing, transportation, and a wide variety more that are too long to list on here, as well as referrals to these other external offices and resources, because they know that this is a big issue and it's a big thing that can often extend beyond their jurisdiction. And so they'll link you to, or they'll direct you to where you can get the best proper support if it is not exactly through them. And for your reference, we've listed their website as well as their social media, Instagram down here, as well as some other support, other helpful links and resources at the bottom of the slide. And again, there's a wide variety of resources. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and take a picture of the slide. And if you need it, we can circle back to it at the end of the presentation.
All right, so just a little bit more about the CARE office. They're really awesome. They have a lot to offer you as students. So just for some of the programs for empowerment and healing, you can definitely find more information about it on their website. So just to name off a few, the Healing Through Our Garden is a really cool one. If you don't know about the Our Garden, it is a community garden on campus, or like slightly off campus, but on campus, that students, faculty, staff, and Riverside community members can go to grow produce, plant plants and flowers, and just really connect with Mother Nature essentially. So this is just a really, really great option of how to move forward with empowering yourself and getting healed for any of the traumatic experience you may be having. So in addition to just working with the produce, you get exposed to open air, you relax, and you also can go through meditation exercises. And just for another one to name off is the counseling and group therapies. So this one is really great to like circling back to what we were mentioning about with having that strong support system. So it doesn't necessarily have to be made up of your friends and family. You can meet other people at counseling or group therapies that are going through the exact same thing as you, or that they've gone through it and they have come out from the other end. So you can really learn from them by discussing your emotions and just how to develop self-compassion and self-care. And then I guess the last one I really want to mention is the empowerment-based personal safety. So you basically learn self-defense and safety strategies. I think that's really awesome. Just more to just protect your mental health, but also protect your physical self.
All right. And I mentioned before that CARE will often direct you to external resources if they feel that you need additional support. And we've listed here some of the resource partners that CARE does partner with. So in terms of like confidential options in case that you happen to need them, there's the counseling and psychological services, or also known as CAPS. and they aim to provide completely confidential counseling to students. And once again, this isn't strictly limited to the care office or victims and survivors of sexual violence. It is also available to all other students, but this is a particularly relevant office in this scenario because, again, this is a very traumatic event um, that these victims and survivors go through. Additionally, there's also the UCR Office of the Ombuds, which is kind of the intermediary between students and the actual university. Just in case there are any issues with the UCR staff or faculty, which students may feel uncomfortable addressing personally, then they can reach out to the Ombuds, which will then kind of serve as, again, that intermediary and mediate all discussions between the two, between you and the university. In terms of reporting options, there's the UC Police Department or UCPD, and they'll be often the most immediate reporting affiliate just because they're the most accessible and they have the most rapid response time. And additionally, there's the Title IX office. So this is where you kind of go to follow up and make sure that all your information is filed and processed accordingly so that you can continue moving forward and taking the appropriate measures from there.
All right, so our last slide about care office. Care is super awesome because they're just so widespread. And they can really refer you to all these different types of departments that we offer at UCR. So just go ahead, take a picture of this slide if you need to, because I know it's a lot of information. But care and there are additional partners such as the LGBT Resource Center or the Visa Immigration Information Office. So these are just really great departments that help you depending on your identity or your citizenship status, and they can really help you through the stressors that come with these type of aspects. And yeah, honestly, you can find more information about them on their website.
Awesome. And again, if you do need to circle back to this slide later on, we'd be more than happy to. But for now, we are going to move forward into the Student Affairs Case Management Office. And this is a great resource to kind of work individually one-on-one with these highly trained incident team responders where they can kind of you would first schedule a consultation with them and they'll begin building like a profile or a case for you so that they can make sure that you're receiving the best outcomes for your specific scenarios. So they'll work with you to kind of gather all the information and recognize and prioritize your needs. So recognize immediately, do you need support perhaps academically, personally, socially, financially, so on and so forth. And they'll be able to kind of identify and prioritize these needs so they can begin addressing them accordingly. So from there, they'll walk you through some problem solving. They'll assist you with it so that not only are they providing you with solutions, but they're also walking you through some of the process to approach and reach these conclusions on yourself. They'll also help you navigate these complex university processes because oftentimes they may not be immediately understandable and accessible to students. So they're there once again to kind of serve as your bridge and your insight into the university workings. Sorry about that. And additionally, they'll also discuss different options with you and strategies so that you can kind of have different pathways to explore. So they're not forcing you to go down one way or another. They're kind of allowing you these opportunities and these different choices, showing you the pros and cons of each, and allowing you to make an informed decision moving forward. They'll also have, in case it's necessary, they'll have post-psychiatric hospitalization follow-up, and they'll also communicate with faculty and staff appropriately, once again, serving as an intermediary. And their end goal, on top of just assisting you in resolving all your problems and reaching a favorable conclusion, is facilitating hope because they completely understand that you can solve a problem externally, but it's really important, equally important, if not more so important, to facilitate that hope and that internal drive and reassurance that things are going to be okay.
All right, so now for another department, really awesome, is the Well. They're really great, especially with being on campus. I really definitely benefited from them multiple times. So for the Well, they provide guidance in multiple different areas, but just to name a few, are the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. They provide education on that, as well as with sexual health, fitness, and nutrition, as well as the peer-to-peer coaching, where you can learn a little bit more about health related topics. And then one to really highlight is the art pantry. So they partner with this food pantry on campus that provides free necessities and food for students who may be experiencing food insecurity, or if you just need something to snack on in between your classes. I've definitely gone to the art pantry multiple times throughout my years at UCR, when I found myself in between classes or in between work shifts where I was stressed about not knowing what I was going to eat, or if I was even going to eat during that day. So our pantry was really helpful, in which I would just stop by really quickly, pick up a snack or a few snacks, and it would really like alleviate a lot of stress I had on my shoulders for that day. But yeah, our pantry is really great. So nowadays, with the campus being closed, you do have to book an appointment, but it's still really awesome that they are still in operation and working to help students. And so you can just follow the "You Can Book Me" link to find appointments that may be available. All right, and then another part of the well is their mental health outreach. So there is an organization and a specific chapter at UCR called Active Minds. So they are nationally recognized student group that works to destigmatize mental health issues on college campuses. So they really advocate for mental health, and yeah, they're just really awesome. And then lastly is the Just In Case mobile app. So this app is really great in order to prevent suicide, or finding help for when you find yourself in that situation. So on the app is conveniently you can find different contact information, different department that you can reach out to if you do find yourself or your friend or someone you're close to that's in need of life-saving information. So if you ever need help, you can go to the app and know who to contact immediately.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with Olivia on the art pantry being amazing. Like I've taken advantage of it myself as well. And a really cool thing is that they are still open even now during the COVID pandemic. You do have to make an appointment via the "You Can Book Me" link that Olivia had mentioned, but you can go in there and schedule an appointment to go in and, in a safe and socially distanced manner, still gather these important essential foods if you are perhaps in need of them. But now moving on, the next resource we wanted to talk about is the Academic Resource Center. And the Academic Resource Center, some of you may be familiar with it from your learning communities and taking the supplemental instruction classes. The supplemental instruction classes are an amazing part of the ARC's function, or Academic Resource Center, or ARC. Their function, as well as the tutorial assistance programs, which offer customized tutorials for many of the common science courses that you'll be taking. But additionally, there's also a lot of workshops and other opportunities and resources that they offer throughout the year. For example, we've listed here on the slide just 4 example ones. So the teamwork and resolving conflict workshop offers you the opportunity to learn about different communication strategies and styles of really dealing with and resolving conflicts, as well as skills to enhance your collaborative working relationships, which is going to be hugely important as you're moving forward into a professional environment, let alone as you're continuing throughout your educational journey. There's also public speaking and effective presentations, which provides an overview of public speaking skills and best practices to understand the tools that are really necessary to speak confidently. Again, as you're doing not only group projects and presentations, but also down the line, more professional presentations, it's important to understand what to include and what not to include in an effective presentation in order to ensure that it's delivered properly and with confidence. There's also the small talk and initiating relationships workshop, which is really helpful for kind of gathering and learning effective strategies to engage just in small talk that are going to develop and lead into more meaningful interactions, which will, again, allow you to develop your relations more strongly. And lastly, for this slide, we have stress management, which goes really well hand in hand with this topic that we are leading today. And it's really designed to show students where stress comes from, as well as how it can affect you guys academically and personally, and how to kind of mitigate this by digesting it and being able to manage it accordingly.
Right, so moving forward, we can take some self-care tips from our favorite Pixar characters. So one in particular, I really resonate with Remy from Ratatouille. I do find that cooking something that I enjoy is a really great form of self-care. So do any of y'all resonate with any of these specific characters? What about you, Nia? Which
I
one do
also
you
agree
love?
with Remy a lot. Like I love cooking and baking. It's so fun just to like kind of be able to experiment and try different things and just like eventually your efforts are just rewarded with like this actual food that's like you can eat and it's delicious and you know you made it and it's awesome. And then I got another message saying they like to identify with, again, Dash here on the slide. So, yeah, we mentioned earlier that for this student, exercise brought them joy. And yeah, like going for a run is awesome. It just not only lifts your spirits mentally, but also like least all these physical and observable health benefits. So that's really awesome. Cool. And then yeah, I'm not receiving any other messages, so I think we're going to go ahead and move forward into self-care tips. So before we talk about our self-care tips, does anyone have any ideas of like any of their own that they practice in their daily life? Maybe in terms of physical, social, or mental and emotional. Feel free to either share examples again, either via unmuting or via sending a message in the chat. All right. So I got a message saying, on top of exercising, they like to get a lot of sleep every night. They find that without getting that much sleep, it's usually draining them throughout the day. So they're always sure to get at least 8 hours or more of sleep if possible. So that's really awesome. That's actually something we're going to talk about in the next few slides. So you're already ahead of the game. Great job there. Anyone else? Olivia, what about you? What are some of your self care tips?
I would say definitely working out, cooking, sleeping, and I guess playing with my dog too, because you know how a lot of dogs have or act as therapy fluffies, which we do have at UCR, that is facilitated through Active Minds. Just find it really nice and comforting.
Awesome. So we'll actually move into the next slide then, where we talk about some of our physical self care tips.
All right, so for physical, as previously mentioned, it is really important to get those 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. And additionally, when it comes to sleep, you want to make sure you go to bed and wake up at the same time, you know, having that schedule for yourself. And then as well as exercising for 20 to 30 minutes, at least 3 to 5 days a week. This really helps, you know, get the blood pumping and get those endorphins released. If you don't know about endorphins are considered like happy hormones. So that really helps with, you know, lifting your spirits. And I guess like moving down to one in particular is caffeine intake to try to limit that because like it plays into with your sleep. You don't want to take a toll on that. And then lastly, the one I will mention is to engage in relaxing activities. You know, just take a break from the hustle and bustle of your daily life and you know, just take some time to reflect and spend time with yourself.
Awesome. So next up, we've got our social self-care tips. So social self-care tips are something that often fly a little bit under the radar. Like people know that they should take care of themselves physically and they should take care of themselves mentally and emotionally. But what they don't realize are that humans are social beings and it's really important to kind of maintain your relations and your outwards bonds with others in order to really facilitate your own mental health. So to that end, we've listed a couple of different ideas on this slide, including like, for example, it is more difficult nowadays with the ongoing COVID pandemic and safety guidelines to have these kind of to have really any in-person hangouts or socials. So perhaps consider moving things online. There a couple of really great resources are Zoom, which you guys are very familiar with, or potentially FaceTime, WhatsApp, or just like a group call with a family member, friends, or just anyone you're close with. You can also do like virtual hangouts, including like a virtual lunch or watch party, or even game night, which are all really fun things, just to again kind of like break the ice and engage with each other outside of a perhaps an academic or professional environment. You can also just like outside of these hangouts, you can focus on the positive things about social media. Again, we mentioned earlier that social media and all the hyper or all the increased information access to information and everything can be really stressful and really impactful on your health. So just try to focus on the positive things, maybe stay away from the latest drama alerts or gossip or anything going down like that. Additionally, we spoke earlier, another thing is that kind of writing things out can be pretty cathartic and helpful. So maybe handwrite a letter or a card to a friend or family member. It's something that won't take you that much time, but it'll allow you to kind of relax and not stress, and they'll really appreciate it as well. Because like, I don't know when the last time I received like a letter was, but I just remember like always going out to the mail, and if I ever see like a letter with my name on it, I just get so excited, even if it's just like a bill or some fun stuff like that. And again, if you have family or anyone that you're living with in person, then that's another great resource to kind of be able to get that human interaction face to face. Again, that's just one of the a really great opportunity. And yeah, lastly, you can also help someone. So being helpful can be really gratifying, and that's something that we're going to touch on a little later again. But just helping someone can be so rewarding, just because you're improving their lives, and oftentimes it doesn't even take you that much, and they're appreciative of it, and it's a great feeling overall. And one example of that can where you're helping someone else as well as yourself, that I like to do, and it also ties in with something we just mentioned earlier on the slide, is for the past year I've been meeting up with some friends on a Zoom study room, and we just hang out there and study. And it's just nice to see that I can drop in any time of the day, and there's almost always someone there. And even if we're not talking, we're just sitting there studying, and it's nice to see another human face after being cooped up all day. And just having that opportunity to chat and speak with people is really awesome. And perhaps most of you guys attending this presentation are involved in learning communities, and this is a great opportunity to get closer with your learning community, because the cohort of your peers you may not have had as much of an opportunity to get to know them this year, just because of all the limitations of being online. But they're just they're taking out the same classes. They're often following a very similar career path. So these are going to be your peers not only this year, but also moving forward throughout your next 4 years. For me, myself, some my learning community friends are some of my closest to this day, from not only UCR but just overall in my life, just because they were there when I started college, and now they're going to be there when I finish college in just a few months. So it's a really awesome opportunity, and I highly encourage that you hang out, like if not with your learning community, then just with anyone possible that you can.
All right, and so for our last bit of self-care tips, but particularly for the mental and emotional aspect of your life, as you can see, there is a lot that you can do for yourself. But just to name off a few, first is to make time for activities that engage you in a fun way. I know I mentioned in the previous slide about self-care tips for your physical health, is to engage in relaxing activities. So another activity you can partake in is engaging. So having fun, stimulating your brain a different way that doesn't stress you out compared to, say, school or other anxiety inducers. So some of these are just like puzzles, reading, art, even playing board games, or doing an actual like physical activity with friends, like or family, like baseball, or playing catch with a football. And so another one I particularly like is to clean up your room. As it mentions on the slide, clutter can increase your feelings of anxiety or be distracting. One saying I like to tell myself is a messy room, messy mind. So I'd like to clean up my environment no matter where I am, whether it's my actual personal room or just like the living room or something where I spend time in. So I like to make sure to clean things up so I don't have to focus always like on the mess. I can focus at a task at hand. And then lastly, and most definitely very important, is to ask for help if you need it. Um, Many people are very independent, self-driven, and they don't want to ask for help. But you have to recognize that you are not alone in this fight, and so there's always going to be other people, whether it's like a therapist or a friend or a partner. They will be there to help you through it all.
All right. And on that note, we are going to end our presentation with the lesson and idea that self care isn't selfish. If you take one thing away from this presentation, we want you to really hammer in this idea, because for a lot of us, we're kind of naturally inclined to help others. I said earlier, 2 slides back, that helping others is a super gratifying feeling, and it's something that's kind of been drilled into us just growing up. Just be kind to others, help others. If you see someone in a difficult situation, it's easy to recognize that and maybe try to start helping them out and just to potentially offer solutions. But at the same time, we often don't recognize these very same difficult situations for ourselves. And it's we for some reason we just don't offer ourselves as much help that often. And we always say treat others the way you want to be treated, but by the very same token, the same should be true. Treat yourself the way you treat others, if that makes sense. Just because you really want to make sure that in facilitating this positive environment and this positive change and this positive outlook, it all starts with you. And you really want to make sure that you are allowing yourself the same appreciation and the same kindness and the same really outlook as you offer to everyone else. So just treat yourself to a self-care tip. Like our request of you is that you try to do one per day for the next week. And hey, if you find that it improves your mental health, then try it for the next month. And if that helps, maybe for the next year. And then just moving forward, just try to just be more conscious of yourself and don't be afraid to just take time for yourself and devote time to your self-care. And with that, we are going to end our presentation. Thank you all again for coming. If you do have any questions, we are going to stick around for a question and answer session. So feel free to hang around and chat with us then. But other than that, thanks for your time and have a good one.
Thank you.